appear to have, one of the pitfalls, I appear to have, find myself here. One of the pitfalls, I appear to have, Stop that. Stop that this instant. Better? Hi. Good morning. I now understand. I know, I lost several sanity points while doing that. Let me see how long I've been doing that. I've been doing that for over 10 minutes. So for over 10 minutes, I've been channeling Nyarlathotep, and I apologize for that. Good morning, good evening, good midnight, good afternoon, good continuum, whatever it is for you, in whatever part of the universe you happen to be in right now. In my part of the universe, it's St. Patrick's Day. Apparently. So I'm using a green screen. So yes, let me explain what it was that I was trying to talk about a few minutes ago. In a way that perhaps humans can understand. This ends the portion of the program for Eldritch Beings, and from this point onward, we're going to be broadcasting pretty much exclusively to humans, to Earth natives, at least. And so yeah, we'll we do what we can. Oh God. Yeah, so recently, I haven't said anything important yet. I don't think I do say anything important. That's kind of the point. The point here is to be silly and distract everyone, which is what I'm trying to do. And, if I've driven anyone mad as a result, mission accomplished. So the last thing that I went to see in a movie theater was the movie Bloodshot. Just before I went into my self-imposed quarantine, semi-quarantine, I've had to run out for supplies. Curious about how that's going to last, but we'll see how that goes. I may tempt fate again and order something just to make sure I can pad everything out to 2 weeks, but we'll see. Trust, that's the thing, though. Ordering anything from anyone involves trust. As does going anywhere and picking anything up. But I digress. Anyway, hi. So the last thing I went to see in the theaters was Bloodshot. It was not good. It was not terrible. It was stunningly average. There were a lot of chunks of things that I think were left out of, like character development and such, that we could have benefited from. So the last thing you went out to see in the theater was an Iron Man movie. That must have been some time ago. Although I know they replay them from time to time. But it's not everyone obsessively goes out to the movies like every week like I do, because I can't stop myself. And I also, I have tricks to make it cheaper. Matinees and what have you, I do other stuff. Anyway, also, hi, how's it going? So I went out to see Bloodshot. It was not, like I said, not great. There were a lot of things where I was like, okay, if we could just get in a little bit more about character motivation, that would be good. We could connect things to other things. The characters kind of had motivations. They did, and they talked about them some. But I couldn't see those motivations connecting to much of what was actually happening in the movie. Exactly. Okay, yes, this is your backstory. I get your backstory. Thank you for providing that. And they didn't turn on the backstory fire hose or anything. It was just, we've established this much about these people. Great. But then we don't really get to see what any of that means in the conflict that happens and in the action of the film. And then you know, and to the point that some folks' motivations are like throwaway lines, and I'm basically like, okay, you need to do a little bit better than that. I feel as though so the comic book, I read a little bit of the comic book originally back in the 90s. It was a long time ago. And so the premise was guy injects himself. I think he injected himself in the comic, if I remember correctly. But with this thing he was carrying, he found government thing, possibly. It's a thing full of nanites. Go in his bloodstream. Keep him from somewhat from getting hurt. Well, they don't keep him from getting hurt. They fix him when he gets hurt. I had been a fan more of a comic that came before it called Rye, that was it takes place in the far future and is a character that whose look was based on Bloodshot's look. As they retro wrote, basically. But then I read like a couple of issues. I don't think they inject him with midichlorians. I do not see him using the Force at any particular point in the film. But, yeah, those are more organic. I think those are like, midichlorians are kind of, from what I understand, are more like, parasites is the wrong word, but, you know, they're tiny things that live in everything. My impression was they were supposed to be living things. But these are nanites, which are robots. And so it basically, basically allows him to heal and all that. And so in this movie, Vin Diesel was playing him. Which, you know, with Vin Diesel has a range. But, you know, as long as he stays within that range, he's good. And he was okay. He was okay in this movie. He actually wasn't a big deal too much. But, you know, we must support Vin Diesel. We must, for he is a gamer, and very publicly so. And we appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of explosions. So this movie did have a lot of explosions in it. There was a bit of Michael Bay tomfoolery in this. But the thing is, I came across this article that you know I immediately decided to hate read. Well, I say I came across it. I'm in a group where people. It's from a site that I don't really go to very much. I don't really think of it as a news source so much as a clickbait source. But I'm in a group where there are a bunch of people who like to post that stuff, so they do other things in the group. There are film discussions. That's the main purpose of the group, I think. Actually, no, the main purpose of the group is to support a podcast that I've heard an episode or two of, but I am woefully behind on actually listening to. But anyway, so yeah, there's this article. Then the headline is Bloodshot is better than any MCU film of the past 5 years. And I can't say that with a straight face, but it's an amusing idea. You know what? I'm gonna actually zoom in on that part of the screen because I just realized there's only so much of the screen that has the actual article on it. And the rest is for ads. So let's do that. Here we go. Yeah, basically, the thing with this article, what to expect from a sequel, really? I don't think it's going to get a sequel, unfortunately. The thing is, the thing that is sad is it's been killed by horrible timing. it's coming out just as Armageddon started, and so it's a bit of an issue. I'm sure they'd love to do one, but the thing about it is the interesting thing about this article is it actually does make a couple of salient points about the production of this film, where they talk about the idea is that it is actually a standalone superhero film. They're not actually trying to connect it to anything else. They're not trying to set it up to be connected to anything else. There has been talk about a Valiant universe happening, but they didn't try to insert anything into this movie to force that connection. So it actually on that's the way to go, really, when you're trying to build a cinematic universe, I think, is to do it like the comics did, which is, they're their own thing for a while, and then they'll cross over. Got to establish their stories, right? Like you can totally, I fully believe, you totally can do ensemble pieces, even with comic book characters. You can do those as starting pieces. You can do, like the first movie in the series is about a team of superheroes. You can do that. And I kind of point to the first couple of X-Men movies as how you do that. But it's harder to do that than to do a thing focusing on one person. And even in ensemble pieces like that, you have to have a certain amount. You have to have certain key characters that you're focusing in on. No more than 3, I would say. And then the rest are there, and there is enough that they're part of the plot and everything, but they don't, they're not primarily motivating the action. They're not protagonists. You can't, by and large, you lean on one protagonist more than any others as well, so you're kind of cheating there, which they kind of did with Wolverine in the X films, those initial X films. But he kind of shared the protagonistness with a couple other characters in those first couple of movies. Third one I have trouble thinking about. It's hard. It's very difficult. But anyway, as these things go, where am I? Bloodshot. So this wasn't attached to anything else. It's just its own thing. It was done on a pretty cheap budget, apparently. They were saying like $45 million. So it might make its money back. Probably would have done a lot better had we not been, starting the apocalypse. It also does, they point out, lean more into the sci-fi action aspect than a lot of superhero movies do. And yes, there are, we have these exceptional outliers. We have Gardeners of the Galaxy. We have Guardians of the Galaxy, and we have Captain Marvel, and we have those the extreme sci-fi, and then Iron Man is also kind of sci-fi, but it's it doesn't lean into as much of sort of a direct sci-fi aspect as Bloodshot does, and so that there's that as well. So that's a salient point. These things do not necessarily make the movie that much better. Movie's still not good, but it's it's a thing. And the guy basically takes this, this is an opportunity to take a pot shot at the MCU for following a formula, which works. And still consistently puts out good stories, and I think individually still movies that were better than this one. I think there is a compelling way to tell the story that comes up in the Bloodshot comics. This was not it. And also, he talks about the theme that, letting go of the past to move forward. That's a good, and it does that well. It also has this amusing thing where they cast. I'm going to give. Shall I give spoilers? Shall I give spoilers for Bloodshot? This is in the trailer. Here's another thing. This guy says there's this major twist in the movie, and I'm like, it's in the freaking trailer. Maybe the guy didn't see the trailer, or the trailer that he had access to, because this gentleman is in Johannesburg. This author is in Johannesburg, so they got a different trailer, I'm sure. So spoilers for this film, for just a moment, before I move on to other things. Guy Pearce is in this movie, and he turns out to be the bad guy. What he's doing, he seems like the benefactor that is bringing the main character back to life, is injecting him with the nanites, which he did, but it turns out he's been doing is wiping his memory and changing bits of them so that to give him a motivation as someone that killed his wife, give him a motivation and he changes the face of, basically resets his memories every night and changes the memories to someone else, to being, to his target being someone else, putting someone else's face on that memory. So it's like, no, this person actually killed your wife. Now you must go and they do the whole thing over and over again. And the thing that I find very amusing about that is that this is exactly the same thing that Guy Pearce's character had happened to him in Memento. All those years ago. No nanites, but basically, okay, I'm going to spoil Memento now for anyone who hasn't seen this movie from the 90s. But Joe Pantoliano is playing a cop in that, and he basically is the main character, Guy Pearce, can't make new memories. Basically, he's sort of like trying to track down what happened to himself, what happened to him and to his wife. Find the person who killed his wife. Joe Pantoliano's character. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, and now I must find out because Pantoliano. There we go. Joe Pantoliano's character has basically is this cop who is just kind of getting in touch with him and using him to basically track down different criminals. So he feeds him evidence, knowing that the guy can't make new memories. He feeds him new bits of evidence to suggest it's a different target. And then they go out and they take this person out. Because he's a dirty cop, and basically he wants to just... He doesn't have enough evidence to book them, but he knows they're guilty. So he's using this poor guy who can't remember anything past, a few minutes to go and take this person out. And so I found that an interesting, amusing little full circle that we had that was going on there. So that was amusing to me. But to say that the audience didn't see that coming is, I feel, rather generous. First off, it's in the trailer. They pretty much all but show that this is what's happening. Secondly, even if you didn't see that trailer, even if you saw a different trailer that was perhaps better for European, or in this case for overseas, I should say, it's Johannesburg, then there are no plot elements left by the time they take out the supposed bad guy. And you can kind of tell there's something up. So I don't think it's that difficult to figure out. It's like you're not even halfway through the movie by the time the bad guy is taken care of, and so it's like there's gonna be more. Something can't be right here. And this character is being played by Guy Pearce, who is essentially playing the same character he played in Iron Man 3 in many ways. So he's the bad guy, right? It's not really that difficult necessarily. I would think. I would actually like to you know, I wish that I could have seen this movie without having seen the trailer, so that I could figure out sort of what my reaction would be and if I'd figure it out. But since I knew about the memory aspect from the beginning, I was like, okay, how much of this is actually real? From the beginning, I was, you know, because I do that. So that was a thing. And, yeah, I don't recommend seeing this movie. I think that, you know, if you want to see it, I would wait until it comes out on a streaming service of some kind. This was distributed through Sony, so I'm assuming they will they will put it out in some fashion. I don't know. The way things are right now, they might just you know, they might make it available for sale on YouTube, like they did that one time with that one film they couldn't release about assassinating someone. I didn't actually see that movie, unfortunately. But yeah. So that's a thing. So, you know, like I said, you know, it's, I mean, obviously, right now you have no choice. But or you shouldn't go and see. Don't go and see anything in the theater right now, please, for God's sake. But if you know, fate should conspire to give you a choice as to whether you would like to see that in the movie theater, I would say don't do it. Don't do it. Just wait for wait to see it in another way. So that happened. Let's see. I don't have a lot of time this morning because I have to prep for Las Vegas, which we're doing in about like 3 hours. I probably need to send out a promo of some kind. Oh, hey! Hello, greetings, Tales from the Fandom. How are you doing? Your theaters are all closed down for the time being? Good. It needs to happen. It sucks. It mightily does, but that's what needs to be going on. Yeah, definitely I'd say wait on that movie. What is happening? Yes. So what other things did I want to did I bring along to mention briefly? So yeah, I've got a few more books because why not? I'm not going to read from any books today. Bit of a pitfall there. I'm gonna talk about an RPG. I'm gonna talk about a fiction book, and then I'm probably, if I have time, I'm gonna show you a little bit of something I'm working on. Which is just, you know, a promo image, and then I think that'll be it. Yeah. Reading ahead is a good idea. Good God, yes, we're not going to do that again. Because there's a lot. There's a lot to deal with respect to that. So I'm actually, as I'm shuffling through these, I'm kind of trying to put them in order. And I'm sort of going to take a look and see here. I see that we have certain limitations because of the way that windows are set up. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So the things that I wanted to show you today, because there we go. Okay. Yep. All right. Yep. Okay. I think we've got everything pretty much in order now. I may skip to this other image. Let me turn that off. There we go. Hey, Hawk, how's it going? Just basically doing some stuff here. Hi. I have gone to the windowless mode so that I can show you these things in my hands a little more easily. So some of you may be aware that I've been running Deadlands recently. I ran Deadlands over on Tales from the Grim. All of the videos are now up on YouTube, so please go check those out. That was the Blue Apron portion of this broadcast. No, it was not. I am not being sponsored, unfortunately. But something that they had for quite a while are these dime novels that came out. This was in the 90s. And early aughts, I believe. I'm trying to remember now, and I'm looking for a copyright date. No, 99 was the last one. So in the 90s, when Deadlands came out, they put out these series of little books that they called dime novels. And they were adventures, but they were also, it's like a short story followed by an adventure of the short story. Where you do it as an RPG, and really the is part of the run using the Deadlands RPG. And the cool thing about it was kind of like getting two stories, because the scenario was actually different from the story itself, from the fiction story, because the fiction story uses its signature characters, and this is. They re-sculpted it somewhat for the, using, same bad guys, that kind of thing, but it's, set up very differently. It's a different way of looking at it. And it's actually an interesting way, if you want to have a study in how prose fiction and RPGs are different, this is actually a neat way to look at it. So I've got them here. I have the collection of them. And, so yeah. Oh god, yeah, Hawkeye, I know you've got to be going through a bunch of crap at work right now. My sympathies. Yeah, so they put out the first one as kind of a Christmas special type deal, which the only thing about Christmas is that it takes place on December 25th. That's really there's Santa Claus, a gunslinging Santa Claus does not appear in this dime novel, but it is a fun thing. It's a thing, about hunting down a spirit. We have okay. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna give a content warning here. Some of the images on the fronts of these are a little graphic. So I just wanted to give warning. It's a little bit of blood and guts, but it's cartoon blood and guts, so it's not hugely that. And as we get further, and so zombies, zombie level stuff basically. There's one cover I'm not actually going to show you the whole thing, but I'll show. So we have Independence Day, which was the second one, and that's takes place on Independence Day, and involves the first appearance of a bad guy called the Butcher. We have Night Train, which is the first appearance of the Night Train. That I think it's really. I know that there are elements where it's green and it's being taken out by the chroma key, but it amuses me so much. Where you have a train full of madness shows up and is delightful. And then they started doing crossovers with other RPGs, which was where it got which got interesting. So there was this trilogy that they put out for where they crossed over with Werewolf the Wild West, the White Wolf game. No, I have not seen the Baker or the Candlestick Maker yet, but we could make those. We could make that happen. So it was these three things where you had basically werewolf heroes teaming up with Deadlands heroes, and because of this big thing where people are crossing portals through to other dimensions, and so that was amusing. And they talk in there about how to, and they talk in these about how to like take stats from Deadlands and convert them to Werewolf, and vice versa. And then they did a crossover with Call of Cthulhu called Adios Amigo. Yeah, I know. So that was amusing. It's about a town and things that get displaced and beings from those beings that can kind of, the Migo, and then also beings from like what was it called? The Great Race? I can't remember. But anyway, coming back and possessing people in time. They were called different things, as I recall. And then we get back to just the regular Deadlands stuff. In these dime novels, you have The Forbidden God, which is kind of about zombie conquistador type thingies. And a boat that shows up in the middle of nowhere. You have, I'm not going to show the entirety of this cover, for reasons which should hopefully be obvious in a moment, but this is called Skinners. And it's about skinwalkers, to an extent. And then the last one they put out was called Worms. And this features Mojave Rattlers, rather a lot of them, and it's delightful. Mojave Rattlers, basically, big worms. Best thing I can relate them to is kind of like the worms in Dune. Or like Dulls, if you are into Lovecraft. Or I guess they're called graboids in, what the hell was that movie? Tremors? I haven't seen that yet. I need to see it. Hopefully I'll see it sometime soon. It's on my list. But the list is long. I will say around that same time, they came out with, and I still had these, so I thought, yeah, sure, why not? They came out with these anthologies of fiction, of Deadlands fiction, and it's the anthology with no name. They named them after the Clint Eastwood movies, basically. It's a bunch of short stories, and it's a fistful of dead guys, and for a few dead guys more, and the good, the bad, and the dead. And I really enjoyed these at the time that I read these. It's been a while. I should probably read some of them again. But it was neat sort of fiction about the Reckoning at a time when it was still fairly new. And the idea of mixing Westerns and horror, while not completely new, was still something that we hadn't seen a lot of yet. Actually, to this day, we haven't seen a lot of it yet in popular culture, but it's there are more examples of them out there. So it's kind of, this is the game that I don't want to say started my addiction to both Westerns and Western horror, but it really kept it going. I'll put it that way. And I delight in it. Deadlands is one of my favorite games. I do have to say that. It is not without issues. Certain aspects of it have not aged well. Actually, certain aspects of it were never actually quite what they should have been, as we're now realizing in these times. But they've been taking steps to deal with that, and that is very good of them. There is a new edition coming out. There was supposed to be a Kickstarter starting this month for the new edition of Deadlands. Haven't seen it yet. Getting antsy. I'm getting antsy here. I'm hoping that they start it up. But I am very much looking forward to it, because there's a new rule set for Savage Worlds out, and I want to see what they did to adapt it, because in the game that I've been running, I've been sort of having to, tie it together with shoestring, basically. So I'd like to see what the official take on a lot of it is. But what else do I have over here? I have one other book that I thought I would. I have another book I thought I would recommend. This is fiction. I have a bit of a connection to it. Although, it's not a huge connection. But It's a very cool. Cool thing. This is written by a friend of mine, Starla Hutchton. She put this out, I think like a decade ago, something like that. This is called The Dreamer's Thread. This is very much, actually, it's very much like looking at an event at a party of people going on an adventure, an adventuring party type, D&D type party, almost, kind of. But it's in that genre of someone finds themselves falling into another world. What are those called? Is that called Hidden Portal? I think it's called Hidden Portal, that genre. But ordinary person finds himself in another world. In this case, she goes to sleep and possibly is in a coma, I think. I can't remember. It's a fun read. I actually also, the thing about it is, though, it's because there, it's this realm that is this fantasy realm that there are sort of dream aspects to it, but it is very grounded in sort of fantasy and that sort of idea of things like Oz, Wonderland, Labyrinth, etc., etc. And it's very cool. Now my connection to it is with a podcast that came out around the same time. It was actually before the book, I believe. The podcast is still out there. So back in the day, back a few years ago, 10 whole years ago, podcasters would go forth and some writers would as podcasters they would actually take their works and they would put them they would put them out in podcast form. They would actually do podcast novels. There were whole infrastructures set up to help that along. This is basically, in order to actually make money at podcasting, you would have to have started in the year 2005. That's at like the latest. But there are a few folks that did it, and they actually got a good amount of support, and they were able to spin that into their career. Just basically putting their fiction out as podcasts. Primarily, I'm thinking about folks like at that time, T. Morris and Scott Sigler, and some other folks, and Merle Lafferty also kind of did that, they were putting out, and so I discovered the podcasts at a time when I was very isolated and I needed things to listen to. And it was very cool, and they were very helpful to me personally. So, as is the case with a lot of things like this, see, my streaming origins kind of are similar to my podcast origins, which are similar to my theater origins if I go back far enough and think about it. It's like I'm sitting there in the audience thinking, I would love to do that. And so in 2009, I did. I started putting out my own podcasts, and I started offering to do voiceovers for other podcasts, including The Dreamer's Thread, which is still available as a podcast. I actually, and I'm going to go ahead, here's the link. Here's the link for that. For anyone who wants to check out the podcast version of this. The Dreamer's Thread, I play a couple different roles in this. Technically I played 3 roles, but the main one is, and this was this was the thing where she had, I wasn't any of the main cast or any of that, but I play a dragon in one of these, a tiny dragon, and tiny little gold dragon, and it was a delight. She gave me very specific direction for how she wanted me to do it. I can't remember which episode I'm in. I'm in like 3 of the episodes, I think. 2 of them is the dragon. And then there's like a 3rd one where I play a couple of other characters, minor characters. And I did some voices for that. And it was a lot of fun. And she also, I've just stopped on this episode because the promo for my podcast, The Great Debate, is there. The Great Debate's still out there for anyone who wants to check that out. That's me arguing with myself as different RPG characters. But in a debate show format. It was more silly than funny. But anyway, the Dreamers thread is a cool narrative, and I urge folks to check it out, especially if you're a fan of sort of that genre, sort of the hidden portal genre. Also, the book, the physical book, is still available both in paperback and on Kindle. And here's the link for that. So if folks want to check that out, because it is very cool, and I highly recommend it. While I'm throwing out links for anyone who wants desperately to see that article about Bloodshot that I was talking about. Why would you do this to yourself? There it is. But it was something that I really enjoyed participating in. And so it was a lot of fun. And I then proceeded to get weird on the internet, which I never should. And I was still trying to learn how things are. I think that I haven't been in a lot of. There were a couple of folks around that time. I realized later I was getting a little overly familiar with, and so it was, as far as nothing huge, but probably enough for people to wonder, why are you messaging me right now, just asking how I'm doing, that kind of thing. So it was a time, and I was recovering from a number of things. But anyway, it's not happening again, is it? No, it's not. Making me paranoid. I was echoing at the beginning of this broadcast for about 10 minutes. But so them's the books, and I don't have a lot of time. I'm gonna go ahead and I think close here by showing you a thing that I'm working on at the moment. Let me see if I can. Oh, I guess that's the entire screen. Okay. Sure. So one of the things that I do my little promos, visual promos, ads, whatever you want to call them, for the upcoming games that I'm going to have. I edit those together using a program called GIMP, which is basically, from what I understand, it's a free program that does, from what I understand, a number of the same things that Photoshop does. So I'm working right now on the upcoming schedule for the upcoming schedule of games for the next 6 months, so that I can put it out. Use GIMP, yay, excellent. Another person who uses it. And so right now the right half is very similar to the left half because I haven't thrown everything in yet. But I will be throwing in the new things in soon. One of those things is a game called It Came from the Late 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 Show. I found my digital copy of it. It's been a while. But I was going to run this game once back in, let's call it 1997. Never got a chance to, so I'm going to try and do a one-shot of it now. Sometime probably in whatever month that's going to be. What month is that going to be? July, probably. And so I've been working on this, and I need to, and I've got, you know, I just go and I use, what are they called? These things that are openly available, things made available either through Creative Commons or otherwise, just royalty free. And these are little PNG images that I have. Like, there's a werewolf and a mummy and a flying saucer here, obviously. What I wanted to do was use this background, which I think I ended up cropping, but I kind of need to have the house a little more visible than it is. So I need to move that a bit to the right and these folks a little further to the left, so that it's going to be more visible. Now the thing of it is that the beam of the flying saucer is not helpful in this regard. But what I'm going to end up doing, I think, here, because I cropped a lot of the images. I cropped this image so that it would fit inside the TV. So I need to replace it with the original, so that I can make it work. So I'm just going to do that real quick, and just, you know, let you see kind of how I do this. So we have it in there. It's obviously, that's much bigger than it needs to be. I'm going to take away the other image thing. So just so you see, I can turn bits of these off and on. So I'm just taking that image away, putting that one in. I flipped it, so I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to change the size of it so that it'll fit inside the TV. And I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than before. But I want to make sure it still fits in there. So I'm going to let's try this scale and see how that looks. I might actually want to make it a little bit smaller. This way, I mean, that could be okay. That's decent. Where we just kind of have it like that, and we have that other window concealed by the mummy. I think that'll work. So now what I'm going to proceed to do is just crop this so it'll fit inside the TV. So, you know, got my cropping tool. And voila. And this is the promo. I've left the white background on there because that's actually how the book looks, and I'm using a font similar to the one that is used for the game. And that's the promo. I'm gonna put that out. That's the square. I do like a square, and I do a banner sometimes. This is for a one-shot, so I'm probably only gonna do this square. And that's gonna go, and I'll shrink that down and put it on this over in this space probably. Yes, thank you, reminders. And I think that'll be what we'll be doing. So we can look forward to that. It Came from the Late 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 Show is a game about basically playing. Silence, phone! How dare you? How dare? It's a game about it's a game about being in a B movie, basically. I know, Silence Phone is an interesting game. Anyone can play it, but most people refuse to. But no, so this game is about being in a B movie, and like I said, it's one I've wanted to play for a very long time, not had the opportunity to, and so it's finally going to be happening in July. And I'm very excited for that. It's basically you're playing actors in the B movie. So, and that's the interesting thing about it, is like the plot of the B movie proceeds forward kind of in the way kind of it would with an RPG. So it's like you're playing as though you're the characters to an extent, but there is always this constant understanding that, well, it's definitely Ed Wood territory. It's like what you're seeing is happening in a movie. And so you can have different things happen. So there's a point where just as actors on that level, you can basically say, okay, I'm going to just throw a fit and tell them to cut, and I'm going to storm off to my trailer until they fix this part of the script. And you can totally do that. Another thing I think you can do, I think if everyone agrees, and I have to go back and look at it, is you can do this thing where it's okay, if everyone agrees, the film breaks. You can like use that once to get out of a problem during the course of a thing, which is just basically, I have no idea, so everyone's trapped, and then suddenly, if the players kind of use their ability to do that, then the film breaks, and they're suddenly outside up in a tree. It's like, gosh, I'm glad we got out of that. That's an interesting thing about that, is I've got to figure out kind of how I want to navigate that, because unfortunately with my brain I have to make it make sense. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play, and I'm really hoping to. This is an older game. This is from a while ago. It's from the 90s. And I really just want to dig into this, because I've been waiting to for over 20 years. And, it would be nice to finally actually get a game of this in. So that will be coming up. I'm not seeing a copyright notice in here. It must be free. No. Yeah, I know they scrubbed the copyright notice when they sent it to PDF. Oh well. But yeah, no, this I think is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So I'm very excited for that. Well, folks, that's I think about all I'm going to have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me see. How long have I been yammering? It's been over an hour. So well. Less than an hour if you count the time when I was making the address on behalf of Nyarlathotep for the first 10 minutes. But I do appreciate it. Let's see. There's not really a huge amount here. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and sign off, because I don't have a lot of time. I've got to reread some things for Las Vegas and prep them and make sure that I've got it together. I need to take a few notes from it. So that I'll have that in front of me. We're going to be doing the second part of the first act for Las Vegas. That's going to be at 2, so that's going to be in just like 2.5 hours. It's an interesting little scenario. Again, I described it as kind of Tarantino and David Lynch had a baby, and they're out there. Their memories have been wiped, and they are in this strange city that is both like and unlike Las Vegas. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it goes. So that's coming up later today. Wednesday night we have Masks. Saturday night we have... Saturday morning I'm going to try and play... try to play Frostpunk. Saturday night we have Invisible Sun. Sunday we have a one-shot, and we also have our Dark Matter campaign, and this is how it goes. as we go further through the week, and if I do more of these, I may try to play some video game or other to add on if I have time. So we'll see if we do that, where I do this and transition into that. That seems to be what most folks do, that do this kind of thing. So we might try that. But I had fun just sort of sitting and chatting about these books and stuff. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you all of a sudden. Farewell.